Newsflash, women are not baby-making machines. Their wombs are not mechanistic factories. There's a way in which we have been talking about this thing called reproductive choice in a very narrow framework. And I really think it's time for us to start expanding that narrative so that it moves beyond just the notion about individual rights. Now, I am all for women having the individual right and choice over their bodies. But what's at stake here is beyond any one individual woman. We are talking about the entire species. Women are responsible for bringing forth human beings on the planet. We act like that's not the way that it is. We keep talking about this as though this is an individual woman's choice. We, as a species, have an indebtedness to women, and it is up for all of us to protect them in this gracious gift that they give of bringing human beings forth out of their own bodies. Wow. Just think about this for a moment. We have over 8 billion people on this planet. 8 billion people. That is billions of women who have put their lives on the line, who have taken that risk to give birth. And just for us that are alive right now, we're talking about some 4 to 5 billion years of pregnancy alone just for us who live here right now. Wow. When we talk about this as just an individual right, then we get stuck in this notion about what an individual person is doing or not doing. And the government then starts to control the wombs of individual people. If we're ever going to solve a problem, we have to be able to solve it on a multi-tiered level. We have to be able to solve it, yes, at the level of the individual. We have to be able to solve it at the next level of where it's the diversity level, where we're talking about ways in which it's like some things, but not exactly like the others. But then there's the universal level. Okay, there's a way in which it is the sum total of everything that is involved in it. Okay, we need to be able to talk about pregnancy. We need to be able to talk about what it means for us as a society to have people who are put in the position of bringing forth humanity. See, it's not separate from individual women, but we need to elevate this because everybody has something at stake in this. This is more than just what's happening with an individual woman. This is more than just what's happening with her and her family and the choices that they're making. And yes, they should have the choices to be able to make that. But as a species, women are putting themselves at risk. It's not a guarantee. Okay? Just because an egg is conceptualized doesn't necessarily mean that that's automatically going to become a successful pregnancy. In the United States alone, at least 20% of all pregnancies wind up in either a miscarriage or some kind of non-viable pregnancy, so that it's not going to be able to come to a full live baby at the end of a fruition of a 9-month gestation period. It's just not going to happen. 20%. That's a lot. And if those women don't get the proper care that they need after those miscarriages, after the time when it's obviously non-viable, it puts their lives at risk. Okay. What we call an abortion is just what's needed for uterine health care. It's just what's needed to make sure that any leftover debris, that any toxins, anything that could be contaminating or poisonous to her is removed from her body so that she can live to tell the story, so that she can live to perhaps, if she wants to, have a child again. This is a sacred right. It is a sacred responsibility that all of us must be able to protect so that anybody, and I'm not just talking about childbearing age women now, but that a little girl now who's thinking about the future, who's thinking about her life, doesn't have to fear that the risk of bringing a child into the world could be at the expense of her own life in an uncaring world that doesn't care about her life as much as it cares about the fetus. When it comes to the point where a fertilized egg in a test tube in a freezer has more rights than a mother, we've gone astray. I want to leave you with something that's just so awake with me now. I remember this was years ago, and I was very, very involved in the AIDS movement. There were different drugs that were just coming out and just being tested. And this was the first drug that had come out geared towards decreasing the chance of a transfer of HIV into utero. So it was designed to see if this drug could prevent the HIV virus from being passed from a pregnant mother to the baby when born. So listen to all these studies and whatnot. I'm in an AIDS organization getting this special presentation. And I asked the question of the person who was making the presentation, who had been involved in the study and all the rest of that. I said, oh, okay, well, this sounds promising. What are the side effects on the mother? And you know what that person said? We don't know. I said, well, why don't you know? Say, well, it's a very interesting proposition, but that was not the subject of the study. I couldn't believe it. You gave a medication to a pregnant woman to see if she could pass the virus off to the baby that she was carrying. But the health and the welfare of that woman herself and the impact that drug was going to have on her was not your concern, only the impact it had on the baby? And they said yes. That was the nature of their scientific studies. I was incredulous. And such as it is that we find ourselves here today. Same thing. More concerned about what's going to happen to a baby potentially, and not a bit of concern about what's happening to the mother. This has to stop. We owe women more than this. They deserve better than this.